Welcome to Phoenix, Arizona, where the city's borders extend to the edge of the Gila Desert, a hot, dry, unforgiving place. But amid the desolation lies an oasis of excitement, fueled by a volcano of awesome speed and sound. Breathtaking thrills. Plain, all-out, world-class nitro competition. In this arena, glory comes through precision teamwork and faultless execution. It is a high-speed victory chase. It's NHRA Winston Drag Racing on TNN Motorsports. As you would expect, it is a simply beautiful day here in the Valley of the Sun, down below Firebird International Raceway, just outside of Phoenix, Arizona. Competition already going in the Checkers Schuck's Kragen Nationals. Glad you're with us on TNN Motorsports. We have a busy day in store for you here at Firebird Raceway. 3 classes of competition: Top Fuel, Funny Car, and Pro Stock. Glad you're with us on TNN Motorsports. I'm Eli Gold. It's an honor and a pleasure for me to be joining the TNN coverage team for NHRA Winston Drag Racing. For 24 years, we've been together in NASCAR coverage, so for me, this is the inaugural voyage. But not for this fellow, Steve Evans. He's been Mike's side for 30 years on the NHRA scene, and everybody tells me this Firebird Raceway outside of Phoenix is kind of like Rodney Dangerfield.
That's a good analogy, Eli. It really doesn't get much respect. When racers and fans talk about the legendary surfaces in drag racing, Firebird doesn't come up very often. That may have changed this weekend.
Now, what a difference from race number 1 at Pomona to weekend number 2 here in Phoenix. Pomona, Joe Amato failed to qualify, 5-time series champion. He was quickest in qualifying runs here this weekend, but he has not been the man grabbing the headlines, because with competition already underway today, a young guy from the Chicagoland area has grabbed all of the attention.
And that would be Tony Schumacher. He's a second-generation drag racer. His father, Don, was legendary in the 70s in funny cars. In round 1, up against the Australian David Grubnick, it was Tony in the near lane, the Excite Batteries car. Now, just watching this run, we knew it was something special. How special? Well, he slammed the track record, 4.54 second elapsed time. But that wasn't what had the crowd screaming. It was the speed. NHRA's first ever 330-mile-an-hour blast.
That's just one of the stories today, because before he gets to victory lane, you've got to deal with either Joe Amato or Corey Mack, who have to face each other.
That's right, and they are both solidly in the 450s. This is going to be an incredible show, maybe the quickest we have ever seen.
As we take a look at the numbers, though, remember, Schumacher has to back that up with nearly a 327-mile-an-hour run later today to make it stick.
And as we look at this graphic, you can see who our round 2 competitors defeated earlier today in round number 1. On the flip side of the ladder, Mike Dunn, who won at Pomona, still in competition. Of course, the king of speed, Kenny Bernstein.
He got lucky when Sarver red-lighted earlier today, but here's what's coming up first. At the start of round 2, Doug Herbert, big guy, against the youngster, Andrew Cowan. There he is, over from Australia.
That's right. His father, Graham Cowan, was runner-up back in 1989 at the Winter Nationals in Pomona, California. And his twin brother backs the car up in its tracks after the smoky burnout that you just saw. Youngest driver in this field by a good distance. Doug Herbert is still a youngster as far as I'm concerned. He's only 31 years of age, a former national event winner in that Snap-on car. Operates his own mail-order parts business in Cherryville, North Carolina, and he's got the famed Dick LaHaye wrenching this car here at Firebird. LaHaye won this race as a driver twice in his career. He knows this piece of pavement. Another thing, as these drivers stare down this quarter mile, they see that dark pavement narrow almost to a point at the finish line. They call that the groove. This is a good track, but a very tricky track, and you've got to stay in that groove. 6,000 horsepower a pair. They move up to light the top little bulb of the Christmas tree. That's called the pre-stage. It's just an aid in staging the car there. Cowan is solidly in, so's Herbert.
Cowan with the whole shot. Herbert Herbert down the track, though, quick. The ET of just 462 to the 471 for Cowart. And you see Herbert's going to advance.
I tell you, that youngster, the rookie kid from Australia, did a heck of a job of hanging in there with Doug Herbert. You can visually see that Cowart on the right-hand side of the screen got the starting line advantage. Gregor's just called it a hole shot. But here comes Herbert. He had a career best in the first round of 460. Doesn't quite match that of 462. The weather's a little hotter. The track is maybe not what it was round number one. Good, smart racing on the part of Doug Herbert and his crew chief, Dick LaHaye.
Nice talking to you, Fry.
So Herbert's going to advance. There's the big guy right there. Got to be smiling, indeed he is. As we now get set for one of the much-awaited battles, Tony Schumacher and Jim Head. Schumacher has lane choice by virtue of that 330-mile-an-hour run earlier, and there he is in the Exide colors.
And you'll notice he has again selected that right-hand lane. The driver with the quickest time from the previous round has lane choice. And so far today, the quickest drivers have all taken that right-hand lane. Recently married, he's 29 years of age. This is one smart kid. And here is one of the real crafty veterans. Jim Head of Columbus, Ohio. He was a trained degree from Ohio State. He was the first to have an onboard computer. He was the first to play with the multi-stage clutches that are now just the standard operating procedure in all of these cars. Jim Head, multi-time national event winner, including the U.S. Nationals a couple of years ago.
The Exide colors for Schumacher, Checker, Schucks, and Kragen sponsoring Head here at Firebird Raceway in Phoenix, Arizona, second round of Top Fuel competition.
There they are pre-staged. Place the handbrake, bump them in. There's 0.4 of a second between yellow and green, but you leave on yellow or you're late.
Heads out by 2/100th. Here comes Schumacher, and Head blows up on the run.
Jim had that engine on kill for Tony Schumacher. He knew he needed every bit of horsepower he could possibly get. Why is that car so fast? It's because Don Schumacher, the team owner, has told the new crew chief, Dan Olson, lean on it. I don't care if you break parts. I want my kid to go fast. I want him to win races. Do anything it'll take to make that happen. Here we see Jim Head on the right side of his screen. Everything's fine. The car's hooked up well.
Wow.
And something in the engine goes away. Right there, you see it dropping cylinders to the right-hand side. That was raw fuel coming out, and that fuel is ignited by the header blast.
I'll tell you, when you drop a cylinder in these babies, you see the wall coming at you very, very quickly. We've not yet talked to the third member of our broadcast crew. Bob Fry is at the far end.
Man, gee whiz, Tony, you slowed to a 325-mile-an-hour run. What's the matter with this thing?
Boy, I felt it spinning the tires in the middle. It left a lot softer. But, hey, Exide team going to the semifinals for the second race in a row, and that's fantastic. I think we got a good handle. What it run?
Well, you ran 459, and that 325 is the key, really getting all the power down in the middle of the track?
Well, you need to get some speed in the middle of the track. There, I felt it was definitely a little softer than it was on the first run, but Olson knows what he's doing. The track's obviously a little worse. They scraped it right before that run, but it's still hot out, and that's fine. That's fine. We'll go to the next one, 250s in a row. Let's just keep going.
Eli, this team, 2 races, 2 semifinals. They just keep going rounds.
First guy to go 330. There's the first man to go 300 miles an hour. Did it at Gainesville. The king of speed, helped by Louis. That's Kenny Bernstein. CNN Motorsports coverage of NHRA Winston Drag Racing is brought to you by Mopar. Parts for Chrysler, Plymouth, Dodge, and Jeep vehicles from the dealerships that sell and install them. That's the Mopar difference as we welcome you back to Firebird Raceway. Mike Dunn, Kenny Bernstein. You see Dunn with lane choice. Obviously, folks, when you get to this level, winning as Dunn did at Pomona a couple of weeks ago, everybody knows you're good. But let's go behind the wheel and talk to Mike Dunn and find out what makes him particularly good behind the wheel.
To be a good driver, you got to go out there and do the same thing every time. You got to do that burnout the same way, back up the same way, because everything affects a tune-up. So it's just like, it's no different than anybody trying to do the best job. You got to get that repetition down to make that thing more consistent. And, you know, I'm not saying my job's boring driving a dragster by any means, but still, you're doing the same thing.
And Mike used all of those abilities just 3 weeks ago in Pomona. He recorded the 3 quickest elapsed times in history. Kenny Bernstein knows that coming into this race, Mike Dunn is a machine and a driver to fear.
Bernstein, number 7 qualifier, but failed to qualify here just 1 year ago. You might remember it rained on Friday, missed badly the rest of the weekend with a best of a 5.99, but Bernstein can win. He's psyched, and of course getting into this round off that red light from Sarver earlier in the morning. So he's already made that one withdrawal from the luck bank, as he told us earlier.
He may be overdrawn at that bank. Look how perfectly Mike Dunn executes that burn burnout very smoothly without hurting any equipment. You just squeeze into the gas, and it's to heat up the tires and put a fresh set of sticky prints down on that racetrack. And it's very crucial that that crew member back him up right in those tracks, or you've wasted the burnout.
And of course, that's just water that they sprayed down there to help get things going. Days gone by, it was a chemical mixture. Not anymore. Dunn and Bernstein here in Phoenix, set to go with a chance to advance.
Mike Dunn maybe had this race in hand, and suddenly a loud bang is heard from that engine, something with the supercharger. Kenny Bernstein, another withdrawal?
May well be after the one earlier today. It's not pretty, but he may just continue with good luck, and that's part of this business. Watch right here. Bernstein had hole shot, got out of the blocks in a hurry.
Mike Dunn hooked up. Beautiful lead by both drivers, dangling those front wheels exactly the way the car should react, transferring weight to those huge, and right there you saw a supercharger explosion, a violent one. Kenny Bernstein, the motor running ragged, swapping cylinders, but still he gets the win. On board with Mike Dunn, and kaboom! Blows the camera right up your helmet.
Bob Fry, it wasn't pretty, but it counts.
Kenny mumbled underneath that Budweiser King helmet there. He said, well, we lucked out again. Had you covered there for a while, son.
Oh, yeah, I could see him. I said, it's over with, and then all of a sudden he just disappeared. I can't say sorry for those guys. They work hard, but the Bud King, Prolong, Mac Tools, Borla, certainly champion. We're happy to be in the semis. This is one of those days maybe we're going to back into this thing.
It's called winning ugly, Eli.
But it is called winning, something Kenny Bernstein is very, very used to. We're here at Firebird Raceway. Joe Amato and Corey McLenithan set to go. We know Amato's quick qualifier. How about Snoopy? You know he is the world's fastest canine because he goes everywhere that guy goes. Joe Amato and Snoopy have this little love affair going, if you will. As a matter of fact, we had a chance this weekend to go behind the wheel with Joe Amato and find out what this deal with Snoopy's about.
Snoopy's my mascot. He's always been my mascot for probably 15 years now since I've been racing Top Fuel. So this year we came out with a helmet. We put Snoopy riding on the doghouse trying to shoot down the Red Baron. And we put a couple guys' names on there like Bernstein and Selzy and Corey Mack to try and just add a little fun to the game. But really, Snoopy is Joe Cool, and my name is Joe, and it's been one of them deals ever since a little girl gave me some Snoopy socks and some Snoopy underpants about, I think, 1983 or 84, and I put them on and I won a race, so then that became magic. Next year is going to be, I think, the 30th year of Snoopy. He's been around a long time, and I've got a whole Snoopy collection, all of the Schultz prints, and I've got probably everything Snoopy's ever made home. I'm building a house. I'm going to have a memorabilia room in the basement. I'm going to have all the Snoopy stuff in a special place. So he's been a good luck charm, and he's been a lot of fun. The fans can relate to it, and it's part of Joe Amato.
Five-time Winston Top Fuel champion Joe Amato. And folks, that is not for show, because Steve and I went into the transporter earlier today, and there was Joe just laying there relaxing a bit, all decked out in his Snoopy stuff.
Absolutely. Joe, a five-time champion, the winningest NHRA fuel driver ever. Corey McLenithan has missed winning the championship 4 times, has placed second 4 times, and it's driving him nuts. Amato has won here, but not since 1990. Corey Mack won here back in '94. Of course, that is the Joe Gibbs-owned machine. We'll see his teammate a little later on, Cruz Pentagon in the funny car ranks, and of course, Gibbs very involved in your World of Winston Cup.
Indeed so, very successful. Let's see here, Amato, near lane, McLenithan across the way. Oh, and Amato just slams the door on Corey Mack. Good night, nurse. Joe Amato gets away at a 4:31 reaction time to the 5:05, and that's where it was won, right there out of the box.
Oh, absolutely. He just slammed him. Just unbelievable. A 4:56, and that is solid here in the heat of the day. It's inching up over 80 degrees, and the hotter it gets, the less racetrack there's going to be out there. Watch him out. Look at, I mean, that's unbelievable. Yeah. Against a veteran driver like Corey Mack, something may have been going on in that cockpit that we're not aware of that distracted Corey, because he's too good to do that. These are both brand new race cars. Only been out one time at Pomona a few weeks ago. And Amato showed here that he is really going to be tough to deal with. This kind of consistency, considering he didn't even qualify at Pomona. They've got a handle on this new 5-disc clutch, and there you see it working.
Joe, you've taken Snoopy for a couple of fast rides today. 4:56, 3:23.
Well, that was great. You know, that got to run Corey. That's a tough car over there. You know, in the second round, we're just trying to get back in the top 10 and make a little points chase out of this NHRA Winston World Championship. But it's exciting out there, and that's 4 runs in a row. We've gone down the track. I don't know if it get any better than this.
Quite an improvement over the Pomona race, Eli.
Indeed, again at Pomona, he didn't qualify. Now it's on to the semifinals. Amato has lane choice. Doug Herbert will have lane choice over Kenny Bernstein as action continues. And there is John Force, the man in funny car. We'll see him on the track in just a bit. Back on TNN, temperature still in the 80s here just outside of Phoenix. Welcome back to Firebird Raceway, everybody. Eli Gold, Steve Evans, Bob Fry is at the far end. Time now for the funny cars. And, of course, you talk about funny cars, you talk about one sick guy. That's John Force, but literally here this week, he has been one sick guy.
He has had the flu for about 10 days, and the problem with John Force is he won't lay down long enough to get well. In fact, he was feeling so badly on Friday, he almost couldn't get in the car to make his first qualifying run. But the doctors have been watching him, making him take a lot of fluids, and this morning out on the starting line, he was feeling a lot better, and well, he should. He is the #1 qualifier at 4.85 seconds, the 104th time he has been #1. No one else is close.
Qualified at a 4.85, as Steve says, ran a 4.89 this morning in the first round, beating Randy Anderson, and it sets up another round matchup between himself and Al Hoffman.
Oh, and the fans love this because these are the two biggest trash talkers in all of drag racing.
Second only to you and I and Mr. Fry, of course. They see some of the numbers as we get set for funny car competition. John Force would love to see his funny car go faster than a top fueler, but after Schumacher's run today, I don't know.
For a while last year, he did hold the national record faster than a top fuel car, but not now. Now with 330 miles an hour. This is Jerry Tolliver. Fairly new driver, didn't make all that many races last year, but he's a real showman. He's probably been in the nightclub business, and most of his racing was done on water. In fact, here at Firebird Lake in a blown fuel hydro. If you can drive one of those, you can drive anything. They are absolutely the most dangerous pastime still legal on this planet.
And, of course, Cruz Pedregon. He, Tim Wilkerson, Randy Anderson failed to qualify in Pomona, but Cruz turned it right around here this weekend. Comes in as the #2 qualifier here at Phoenix.
And he's the only driver in the 90s other than John Force to win a Winston championship. There is Tolliver, the WWF car, World Wrestling Federation. He's big on that.
And Cruz Pedregon in the near lane. Red light, left side. Cruz has the free pass.
It looked like maybe Tolliver had a big hole shot. Nope. He got in there, and he just got staged a little deep. And remember, we're trying to restrain 6,000 horsepower with a handbrake. The car just got away from him.
A perfect reaction time is .400. So obviously a .299 means you fouled.
Well, as the cruiser slides to a stop, let's have another look at the starting line. Watch the black car. That's Tolliver right there. He just left.
Yeah.
He's just
simple as
left.
that. Yeah, indeed, he did.
Whether it was brain fade, mechanical, or what. But he also knew he was up against a tough customer, and a hole shot off that starting line would have maybe evened it out just a little bit. But Cruz Pedregon, he'll be back and ready for the semifinals.
I am ready, though, for this next run, the one we talked about earlier, the Trash Talk 1 versus Trash Talk 2. John Force, Al Hoffman, with Force having lane choice, as you see. Of course, everybody says automatically he's the favorite. And there's something new about John Force. He's lost a good bit of weight. As a matter of fact, we had a chance to chat with him here this weekend at Firebird, and we went behind the wheel with John Force to find out the motivation he's had to drop almost 20 pounds of weight.
Okay, I'll give you the straight story. When I went into Dallas last year to run the Elvis car, they couldn't get me in the Elvis fire suit. Is that what you wanted to hear?
Yep.
They took 3 guys to shove me in it and pull up the zipper. And we were talking about getting our car light because it was 50 pounds heavy, which really meant that that the competition really had the edge on us. And Coyle said to go out and spend, I mean, I'm talking $100,000 in just parts to lighten up the car, to knock off, you know, try to knock off 50 pounds that the driver could lose 15 or 20 just by going on a diet. And so I went on a diet, and I went all winter, and I really feel a lot better. I know I said it on TV. I said, just lose 15 pounds, you feel good, but I really do. Down on energy today because I got a little bit of the cold bug, but I really feel a lot better for it.
And he's certainly been running awfully well here this weekend, the #1 qualifier.
John Force has won the 4 previous races here at Firebird for 4 consecutive years. I guarantee you, Al Hoffman, his Pontiac knows that. Jimbo Ermolovich is his crew chief. Al Hoffman has 15 career wins, but never won here in the desert for the Florida racer.
Did win at Memphis a year ago, giving him a return to the top points. Oh, and he's in. Looked like Al dropped the cylinder and saw the wall looming in a hurry.
And Tremendous downforce from this newly designed Jack Roush-built Mustang body of 485 for John in this weather. Unbelievable.
Watch it again now. Force and Hoffman. Hoffman in the far lane, and he goes about to the 330-foot mark, and then he's out of the groove.
That's right, and when he got out of that groove, he started to smoke the tires right there. There was no recovering from that.
Here it is again, coming at you. Al does a heck of a job to save it.
Absolutely. He just overpowered the racetrack. When you're up against John Force, you bring everything you've got. And Al
look
did.
at Force right down Broadway. Doesn't vary at all. He's at the far end with Bob Fry.
How you feeling, man?
Yeah, I tell you, I took some TheraFlu. It ain't even a sponsor, and I'm plugging them, but this old hot rod truck, man, she had the front end bobbing 300-400 feet, wouldn't set down. Tried to get after Al on the start line because knew he could run a number. But, hey, I feel better. Hey, winter rounds always fixes anything.
Eli?
The young fans love the untouchables. John Force and his teammate Tony Pedregon. We'll see Tony as soon as we come back to Phoenix. Back on TNN Motorsports here in Phoenix, and that's what NHRA Winston Drag Racing's about. The families are here. Second round, 3 runs already in the books. You see Force, Pedregon, and Bazemore having already advanced. Now Tony Pedregon and Del Worsham to finish out this round of competition.
29-year-old Del Worsham up against Tony Pedregon. There's Worsham, and congratulations are in order for Del. Just a few days ago, he married the lovely Connie. He promised her a honeymoon in the desert.
And here we are.
It was at a racetrack.
And of course, Tony Pedregon won the funny car competition at Pomona, defeating Gary Densham for his 6th career funny car victory and 15 final round appearances. And they've got their own operation now. It's not really just an offshoot of John Force.
John Force still owns it, but it's independently funded. They have their own budget. Crew Chief John Medlin was saying, I can really get aggressive now. And Force says, beat me if you can.
We'll see what happens. Could be down the road today, but right now, Pedregon and Worsham fill out the ladder here in second round.
Family operation for Del Worsham out of Southern California. They build a lot of their own stuff. Worsham, very, very good driver. Rookie of the year.
Worsham having to pedal it to save that car.
And when he pedaled it, he blew a motor. He was running in his own oil, did a heck of a job of keeping that car straight and off the fence. So Tony Pedregon advances to face John Force.
5022. Watch this here. I'm amazed, and again, being the newcomer to NHRA Winston Drag Racing, these guys look like they're skating along. They're kind of hanging on for the ride, are they?
They absolutely are, especially the Worsham car. It was right on the edge. It took a little set coming out of the gate. He brought it back, keeping it in that groove we talked about earlier. Right there, he has a motor problem. Now he's got oil under his tires, and he shuts it down. And also dropping cylinders was Tony Pedregon, the car now on the near side.
And just look at the heat radiating up off this quarter mile. That really has seen this track change a good bit from the early morning rounds when the temperatures were in the 70s. Now it's in the 80s. It's not bothering Tony Pedregon.
I got away with one. I got out of the throttle. I probably didn't need to, so I'm just going to have to stay on top of it. Definitely racing John.
Tony's the points leader, but we'll find out if he's got enough race car to take out the champ in the semis. Eli?
Bob, thank you. Meanwhile, before we have a chance to advance any further, let's set things for you. John Force and Cruz Pedregon, they have got lane choice moving on to the semifinals. But earlier today, before we show you any more competition, Steve Evans went to the pits for a UTEC tech tip. Here's Steve.
We know there's a lot of you out there that enjoy taking a car you drive on the street to your local NHRA drag strip and have some fun. Race your friends and try to go quick and fast. Two-time Winston Pro Stock champ Jim Yates used to do the same thing.
That's right, Steve. Back in the early 70s, I used to bracket race my 69 Mustang at the local track every weekend.
How about some tips for the weekend warriors?
Well, you know, there's a lot of things you can do, especially if you're talking about racing your factory street car that you're driving every day. The most important thing I found is to run an automatic transmission, because that gets all the horsepower you can get to the ground. Maybe let a little air out of the tires so you get better traction. Find the right RPM to leave the starting line with the least amount of wheel slip on the starting line. And then once you come up with that, maybe preset the carburetor so it automatically leaves at that RPM. Next we work on is maybe adding a little horsepower to the car. If you can replace the stock exhaust system with an aftermarket high-flow exhaust system, you get two benefits here. One is it's your biggest increase in horsepower right off the bat. And number two is it'll give you a little better fuel economy every day on the street. Get that part of it done, then let's look at the engine. You know, you can update it, put maybe a little better spark plug in the car. What I would suggest is actually, and I did this myself, is come up with a separate set of spark plugs that I ran just at the racetrack. A range cooler and heat range, and then close the air gap up, maybe by about as much as 20 or 30 thousandths. Get it down to about 35 thousandths or so air gap. It'll let it fire hotter and stay cooler and not foul out as much at the racetrack.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
TNN Motorsports back at Firebird Raceway outside of Phoenix, where later on top fuelers go semifinal running. Joe Amato, Tony Schumacher. Preparations, though, are underway. Bob Fry?
You got a 326-mile-an-hour race car, can cover the quarter mile in 4.5 seconds. All this trick stuff, and they got problems with the spark plug?
Yeah, when they went to put the spark plug in, it's stripped out. It's aluminum head. So they're trying to put a helicoil insert into it to hold it in. Now you don't know if it's going to stay in on the run. So it's always something with these race cars.
Little things will drive you wacky, won't they?
Yeah, there's enough pressure out here. We don't need things like that to happen.
Hey, maybe Snoopy will pull him through in the semifinal round. Eli?
Bob, thanks. But later on, we'll see the top fuelers. But now Pro Stock set to go. 500 cubic inch engines powered with gas. They have carburetors and some interesting names. Alan Johnson still going at it.
Alan Johnson may be the story of this entire race. He'll be up against Troy Coughlin, who was runner-up at Pomona 3 weeks ago. Now, understand, 4 factory Dodges showed up, but not one of them qualified. Alan Johnson, the independent Dodge Avenger, put it in the number 9 slot and is still alive for the semifinals. Unbelievable.
Really is. We're talking Darrell Alderman was here, didn't qualify. We're talking Scott Jeffreyon was here, didn't qualify. This guy did, overlooked by the factory.
And his father, Roy, is also the engine builder for that car. A little help from Dale Ike. You know, it takes a different mindset to race a Pro Stock car. The fuel guys are bomb builders. Pro Stock people. Gone back to the good old days, you got to manually shift these cars, and everybody we talked to, including Troy Coughlin, totally in favor of driver back in the car.
Remember,
more than ever.
Troy and his brother Jag got finals at Pomona. Oh, brother.
Nobody a whole shot. It's anybody named Coughlin.
Coughlin's got the power.
Oh, almost a photo finish, but it is Troy Coughlin, a 704 to an oh so close 705, 196 miles an hour for the winner. But boy, I'll tell you, Alan Johnson fought the good fight.
He beat Jim Yates. He did earlier this morning. He beat Warren Johnson. Here he had the whole shot against Troy Coughlin, but Troy just pulls him down the quarter mile.
Now, the whole shot was only 1/100th of a second for the car in the near lane, the Dodge Avenger. But Pro Stock is a game of hundredths, if not thousandths of a second. You can have a whole field within 100th or 2 of each other across the 16 cars.
So we're setting up potentially another all-brother final as we had at Pomona, as Troy Coughlin advances right here, sending Alan Johnson home, beaten but proud from Firebird Raceway here in Phoenix, Arizona. Coming up in just a moment, the second of our semifinals. But first, let's hear from Troy as he's getting out of that Jags machine. Down at the far end, Bob Fry is with him.
What are you guys, looking to go the season undefeated?
I'll tell you what, we're on that type of a roll. I'll tell you, Eric and Mike and Clint, my dad, the whole entire Jegs mail order team's done a hell of a job to turn this car around eliminations today. That's for sure.
You guys have had some problems, or?
Yeah, we've had some traction problems trying to get hooked up to the track and stuff like that, and we're experimenting and trying our best, and like I said, I got the best damn team out here. We're going to the finals.
Nobody can stop the Juggernaut this year, at least not so far.
I love the way Bob comes up with those terms, the Juggernaut. Kurt Johnson, Jag Coughlin with the KJ having lane choice coming up in just a moment or so. But what's the deal with this Coughlin bunch? They're talented. They've got desire. Yes, they've got the financial wherewithal. We went behind the wheel with them this week to find out the family that races together seeks championships together.
Troy's goal in 99 is to win the championship. My goal in 99 is to win the championship. Our team's goal is to win the championship. It's a matter of which car, and so our focuses and our energies are to do that. And to do that, you know, there's 22 races in this great NHRA Winston Series, and it's going to take a lot of hard racing and some good consistent events.
Now, the patriarch of the family, Jeg Sr., has run Top Fuel, Pro Stock, Funny Car, and he's given the boys a lot of advice that they've taken.
He's always tried to teach us to, I've repeated it 100 times, but to get to a level of focus and to achieve a game plan in your mind, and then, you know, because your mind is so strong, it can really make or break you at any point in time. And I think that's really been one thing he suggests, not only in racing but in business as well, to, you know, to have the confidence, the self-confidence, and that drive.
Quite a talented field, made up of 2 Coughlins here this weekend.
Troy Coughlin touched on it. The dragsters, the fine cars, have no suspension whatsoever. They're just solid front and rear. These Pro Stock cars have incredibly sophisticated chassis, and nobody's better at chassis tuning than maybe Kurt Johnson, 34 years of age. Of course, his dad Warren was defeated earlier by Alan Johnson. But we're talking about shock absorbers and ballast that can be moved around and all kinds of adjustments that can and sometimes must be made to help these cars handle the kind of horsepower, 1,400 horsepower from these naturally aspirated motors, 500 cubic inches.
Remember, Jeg defeated his brother Troy in the Pro Stock Finals at Pomona, the first all-brother Pro Stock Finals in NHRA history.
Kurt Johnson's first race here was in 1993. He ended up over the wall in the near lane, upside down. His biggest embarrassment so far as a driver, but he's over that learning curve, trust me.
His daddy won it last year. Can KJ do it this year? Drag race here. Johnson, Coughlin, to the lights. Give it to Kurt Johnson. Look at those numbers, identical on the mile per hour. The difference, 4:56 on the reaction time.
That 4.8 light is not common for Jeg Coughlin. He's usually right at 4.2 or 4.3 in that Oldsmobile Cutlass. In the Camaro, Kurt Johnson, flawless performance. Absolutely perfect. Daddy will be proud. And Daddy will be over in that pit to see what he can do to get that car ready for the final, too.
And by the way, if you're new to Pro Stock competition, it looks so easy. These guys just going right down the middle, step on the button, hang on and go. But they are busy as bees inside the cockpit. This year, it's back to the throwback of the old days. A lot of shifting going on. As a matter of fact, the Coughlins have been kind enough to carry the onboard camera. And take a look what Jeg goes through here.
Now, just a single lever, but still it has to be pulled perfectly in time with the shift light that is preset at different RPM levels.
Good run, not quite good enough. Kurt Johnson advances. He's with Bob.
Finally, somebody beat those Jegs guys.
Yeah, they've been tough this year. You know, the kids are driving good. Real good family over there. But the AC Delco Camaro, you know, it's been flawless. We went down to Tucson, did some extensive testing down there, and it's showing in Phoenix here today.
KJ, how important is lane choice in the final?
Well, we like that right lane. We've been in it all day. NHRA, the way they groom the track, I shouldn't see any difference in between the lanes.
Wow, the preceding a paid political announcement from the Johnson family. Eli?
Kurt Johnson advances. He'll be meeting Troy Coughlin for the Pro Stock Championships. John Force, flu bug or not, he's working the ropes and saying hey to the fans. We're back to Phoenix in a moment. TNN Motorsports back in Phoenix. A little later on, the Top Fuel semifinals. We've already heard from Joe Amato. Bob Fry now with the Schumacher bunch.
Now, one might figure that after running 330 miles an hour, that the team from the Exide Batteries car would have to come back and completely put in a new bullet. After all, these cars aren't supposed to run like that and live. But let me tell you a secret. This team not only didn't hurt anything on that 330-mile-an-hour run, they haven't hurt anything this weekend. Between rounds, it's just been normal maintenance. Got to watch out. This Exide Batteries car is running quick, running fast, and they're making this baby live.
And that's a big, big key with only 90 minutes between runs.
And you know, Eli, often, though, you'll see that the best running cars maybe have the least engine damage because those engines are running efficiently. And when they do, they don't eat themselves up.
Funny Car, Cruz Pedregon, John Force, they've got lane choice. First matchup I'm going to be showing you, Cruz and Whit Bazemore. Whit, of course, taking over the driving chores of Chuck Etchel's funny car. And there's the Cruiser in his Pontiac.
Cruz Pedregon, we mentioned earlier, Winston champ in 1992. He has won 3 U.S. Nationals titles, the toughest race maybe in this sport to win, and that is his proudest accomplishment. Cruz really enjoys working with kids in charity work and also enjoys doing the Hispanic media, fluent in that language.
Cruz dominating here in 19. Old history doesn't mean anything, but it's nice to know you've won here from the #1 starting spot.
And what a battler Whit Bazemore is. He's had more fires, been into more walls than maybe all the rest of these drivers combined, but he stuck with it, and now he is a championship caliber racer. He also has won the U.S. Nationals in his hometown of Indianapolis, and he is driving the Chuck Etchel's car. Etchel's decided to bring a little sponsorship along. They just kind of pool their assets and see what they can do with the Kendall Super Winch Camaro.
But Etchel's had that car in the finals last year, which you might remember was the first all-Camaro funny car final in NHRA Winston history.
Wes Cerny tunes this Interstate Batteries car, again owned by Joe Gibbs, who has a 2-pronged attack in drag racing. The body up on the Whit Bazemore car, that is standard operating procedure. They turn on pumps, they turn off. Everybody's got a different deal there when that body comes up. I'm not sure what they all do.
Semifinals and funny car.
Cruz had the lane choice.
Cruz has the jump.
Ooh, good race.
Problems. What was that flew off? The burst panel came off. Cruz gets the win light. The numbers not hugely spectacular. Looked like a burst panel or something flew off right there above the word hot rod.
Only one thing will cause that. The supercharger banged or sneezed, and had it not been for that burst panel coming out, that body would be on its way to Tucson. No way it would have stayed on the chassis. So he may have his bell rung just a little bit. Let's watch. Cruz Pedregon on the left-hand lane. It's a gorgeous run, hooked up, firing on all 8 cylinders, no drop cylinders there, and all of a sudden it starts to smoke the tires. When it does that, it unloads the motor, and boom!
There it went.
And he got the win light. There's no damage to the body, and they've got a big crew and a lot of parts, but when it started to smoke the tires, that's really hard on the motor. The RPM comes up, it unloads, and the supercharger doesn't like it.
Safety valve working just fine, though. The blast panel there. Cruiser will be around to run in the next round, and there he is climbing, shaking up just a little bit. Bob Fry, who was waiting for him at the far end, is letting him go, obviously, to get himself checked out, and Bob will check out with Cruz a little bit later on and see how he's doing. But Cruz will advance. Next up, the Untouchables. One of them's going to be touched in just a bit. Today's coverage of Firebird Raceway is brought to you by Mopar, parts for Chrysler, Plymouth, Dodge, and Jeep vehicles from the dealerships that sell and install them. That's the Mopar difference. Coming up, John Force and Tony Pedregon, corporate teammates, yes, but the storyline goes a whole lot deeper. Anything when you deal with John Force goes a whole lot deeper than what's just on the surface. We go behind the wheel with NHRA's most popular driver to find out why he's got #1 on his helmet. Here's John.
The #1 is kind of a cute story. I put it on because I wanted #1 on my helmet. Like NASCAR, they have big numbers on their cars, so the people would always relate. I won in 1990 and 1991. I kept the #1 on. When I lost in 92, Cruz Pedregon came over and said, "How come you have the #1 on your helmet?" Since he was #1, I said, "Oh, I'm #1 with the fans," based on T-shirt sales. And that's how I got to keep it on the helmet. So I out-thought him again.
And there is no question, Eli, he is #1 with the fans. When he arrives in the morning, it's like a rock star. That's the kind of greeting he gets. Unbelievable.
There's Tony Pedregon, fresh off the win at Pomona, beat Gary Densham, but to get to the finals today, he's got to knock John Force off. A tough, tough assignment.
There are some racers out there probably saying right now, no way John Force can lose. Tony lays down for him. I'll tell you right now, that is not true. Not this early in the season, maybe not ever. We saw a great race in Houston last year. We thought that was going to happen, and Tony beamed by a fender in the lights with a 480 laps time. So Tony is on a bonus program now that he's never been on. John says, I didn't hire this kid to teach him how to lose. I asked John Force, what are the chances here? He says, I don't think he can beat. I've got these new Alan Johnson designed cylinder heads that Tony won't have for another race yet. That's going to give me a Plus, I've got lane choice, and I think that's huge right now for the fuel cars. Quote John Force.
Austin Coyle lining up John Force there. Okay signal.
This is for bragging rights in the lunchroom as far as the crew chiefs are concerned.
Tony Pedregon against John Force.
But gets right up alongside the wall. And John Force will go to the final round at a nice 489, 305 miles an hour. Look at the reaction time difference there. Tony was really on the mark. 600s, that's huge on the boss.
But Tony did a super job to not rub the shiny off on the wall.
Now it's carrying the front end. It gets out there, it rattles the tires. You see him vibrate a little bit. There's not a lot of steering at this point. And Tony finds himself right up against the fence, but does a very nice job.
So it won't be another final for Tony Pedregon. John Force, not the easiest of runs there in the left lane coming at you. But Bob Fry, he did the job.
John, just the way it's supposed to be. You and Cruz, the number 1 and 2 qualifiers, going at it in the finals.
Well, I look at the big picture. You know, we work for Castrol and Syntec and Mack Tool and Ford, and Tony and I are going out of this race number 1 and 2, and that's really critical no matter what happens here. Cruz going out of Pomona and Bazemore going out here. So we're excited. What can I say? We'll just see if we can put this old hot rod in another winner's circle, maybe.
John does this. He might get sick more often.
What a run.
Doesn't even know what he ran. He ran all the way to the finals, a 489 at 305. And there you see Force and Cruz Pedregon going at it head-to-head. Well, a lot of sports might have a retrospective or a perspective. What do we have? We have Nitrospective, a chance for us throughout the course of the season to bring you up to speed on what's happening in the world of NHRA Winston Drag Racing, and it's all happening down in Gainesville, Florida before too much longer.
That's always a packed house. A lot of snowbirds coming down from the north, and expect records at Houston. That track is below sea level.
And as promised earlier, here's Bob Fry and the Cruiser.
Cruz, tell me what happened on that semifinal run.
Oh, just bang the blower on the lights. The car's been loose all day, and it's been running real good. It just got a little loose upstairs. Wes just said that, hey, there's no major problem with the engine. Just a matter of it spinning the tires off a lot and probably caught a valve somewhere. But it banged pretty hard, blew my visor up, and rung my bell a little bit. But you know, we're going to get up off the canvas and try to get a win here in the final. We could sure use one right now.
I don't think there's any better match in our sport, not only this year, but for the past couple of years, than you and John Force.
Well, we think so. You know, we go way back. It seems like 92 was a long time ago, but John's, you know, they did a lot of homework with their new cars, and they're a little advantage there with the bodies. But, you know, we feel like Wes is doing all he can in the crew to get this car to slip down through there. We've made some adjustments with this Pontiac, and we've had a lot of help from them. We appreciate that. But, you know, we've got our work cut out. Obviously, John's running good, but, you know, we think we've got a shot. We run 80 in qualifying, and for Interstate Batteries and everybody over here, we're just going to see what we can do.
Eli?
Bob, thank you. Kenny Bernstein and the lovely Cheryl Johnson. I'm telling you, Kenny and Cheryl together forever, but he's overachieved, Steve.
I did. This team would be lost without that beautiful lady.
When we come back, the top fuelers and their semifinal runs as TNN Motorsports is with you at race number 2 of the NHRA Winston Drag Racing season. To paraphrase, the sun shines bright on my old Arizona racetrack. Still in the 80s here at Firebird International Raceway, just outside of Phoenix. Eli Gold, Steve Evans, Bob Fry. This racetrack handling the sun pretty well, though, today.
And in the semifinals, we're going to see Joe Amato up against Tony Schumacher, Kenny Bernstein meeting up with Doug Herbert. Now, Doug Herbert's crew chief, Dick LaHaye, has a problem that Kenny Bernstein's crew chief, Lee Beard, doesn't have, and that is the sheer size of Doug Herbert.
He's a big boy, makes the car heavy.
It makes the car heavy. It's tough to find the balance that this machine can. The Bud King enjoying 20 years now with the same sponsor. I mean, that rivals Richard Petty, doesn't it?
It really does. There is Kenny Bernstein, failed to qualify here a year ago, but he's trying to head towards the finals this afternoon.
This has been an up-and-down race for Kenny. He didn't qualify last year, the year before that. He set the national record on this very piece of pavement. Doug Herbert had his best ever elapsed time in the first round, that 460.
We mentioned earlier, crew chief Dick LaHaye, a runner-up here in 1985, then won the races in 86 and 87. So if experience means anything for this team, well, they have got a lot of experience, as they say, going for them.
And we've seen a real lopsided balance as far as wins in that right-hand or near lane closest to our camera. Let's see if it happens yet again. This would be huge for Herbert. He hasn't beaten Bernstein in a long, long time.
And can he win out of the left lane? He's there. He's pulling him.
It's Bernstein.
Kenny Bernstein out of the left lane. Look at the numbers. 63 with a 1 to a 63 with a 4.
But Kenny won with daylight to spare because of a much better reaction time.
And look at how those cars work right off the line. They're balanced so beautifully.
You can actually see that Kenny's car is working a little better than Doug's. He pulls the front end up a few inches more weight transfers to the rear, and the front end gets lighter as the car goes down the racetrack because you're burning off fuel at a rate of a gallon a second.
Remarkable. Kenny Bernstein, he will advance against the winner of the Joe Amato, Tony Schumacher semifinal yet to come. And let's go on board with Kenny Bernstein for this ride again.
About 5.5 to 6 G's right there at the step. That's what they call when they mash that throttle. When the chute comes out, another 5 negative G's.
Here's Bob Fry.
He's 20 years with Budweiser. Another final round for Kenny. Some things never change.
Well, they do change. We appreciate it very much. Tough competition out here, as you know. We're just happy for Budweiser, certainly Mac Jewel, Pro, Borla, Champion, La Paz. All these people have been with us for these long time. A lot of them been there 20 years, actually. 2 of them have.
Kenny, come out here and run a 63. Is that what you expected?
Well, we didn't know what to expect. You know, we've been chasing this thing pretty hard all day. Hopefully we just could get it to run better than 73 like it did last time. So 63, maybe it gives us something to look at. We actually went back to some records at Memphis. Conditions were similar there, and we put that setup in the car. And at least at Memphis it ran 60 flat, so I guess it repeated. Now for the final, obviously we're going to have to do something against these 2 guys because they're flying.
Kenny, they call you the king of speed. No matter who you run in the final, you'll be number 2 here this weekend in speed.
Well, we appreciate that. They're going fast. 330, what an accomplishment. That's a great day for drag racing. You know, it's all part of this game.
He's talking of Tony Schumacher, who did go 330 miles an hour earlier. He'll face Snoopy and his pet human, Joe Amato, as soon as we come back to Phoenix. TNN Motorsports back in Phoenix. Osage of the Cactus. How old are those babies, sir?
Saguaro Cactus. The larger ones are pushing 200 years. Right now, we've got a sensational Top Fuel semifinal lined up. The quickest driver in the history of the world, Tony Schumacher, against that man, the winningest driver in the history of nitromethane-fueled race cars in the National Hot Rod Association, Mr. Joe Amato.
He credits a lot of reasons for getting to where he is, including those 5 championships. One of those is he's a practitioner of yoga, as we learn behind the wheel.
I do yoga, which is very great for the mind, as far as clearing your mind out, breathing exercises. They balance your body. So I do a lot of that. And that carries back into the racing. When I come to the track, I do a lot of practice. Everybody uses a practice tree to do foot-to-eye coordination. You know, you do mental work on visualization as far as visualizing the run. Try and program your mind. You need a little quiet time. Sometimes you can't get enough quiet time. You know, when the Tenneco Automotive brings 50 people trailer side and there's 500 people in the tent between rounds, you got to go sign autographs. Sometimes it gets a little hectic, so you have to always try and leave yourself that 10 minutes to win the trailer and line yourself up and bring yourself down to ground yourself, so to speak, what they call in yoga. And once you ground yourself and you get your brain cleaned out, then you can go to the starting line and try and do your job. And you do all of that and just practice, and I pray a little bit too. And you do all that, and it helps you to focus. It comes down to concentration. Whenever you mess up as a driver, it's because you didn't concentrate.
Tell you, the man has concentrated, no doubt about that. Joe Amato. But the guy he's facing now, Tony Schumacher, X-Side machine, 30 miles an hour in that head-to-head battle with Dave Grubnick, and it's been a while since we've seen it. Let's watch again.
This is the run that electrified the thousands of people here at Firebird today, and us for that matter. Tony Schumacher, you don't bump NHRA national or world records 4 miles an hour, maybe a half a mile an hour, a mile. That's what the record went from 220 or 326, held by Gary Selzy, to 330. And you know, if he doesn't back it up within 1% today, who cares? You know what you get for setting a national speed record? Nothing.
And I guess if he does back it up, it's kind of like by accident. You can't really shoot for that, can you?
Absolutely not. You risk losing the race, overpowering the racetrack. If it happens, that's fine. But everybody in this sport knows who was the first to run 330. We'll never forget it, whether it's in National Dragster magazine on the record page or not.
There you see the numbers as they looked earlier this morning here at Firebird International Raceway. Tony Schumacher then, Tony Schumacher now, getting set to meet Joe Amato.
But this sport is not about top speed. out elapsed times. Run a big number, that's fine. That's good for the ego. But elapsed time is what really matters. And Joe Amato was the #1 qualifier and has been the quickest car consistently throughout the day, other than that first round, 4:54 by Tony Schumacher. Now, the kid is in a lane he hasn't been in all day long.
Right. Joe had lane choice, and heck, I'll put him on the other side. Just.
Ooh, and Tony tries to pedal it to no avail. Joe Amato streaks away with a outstanding 460, 318 miles an hour, and he even left on the young man by 100th of a second off the starting line.
Watch this right here. He has the reaction time right out of the box, and then the smoke just bubbles up off those big Goodyears, and the day is done for Schumacher, setting up Kenny Bernstein and Joe Amato, 34th time ever that they have gone head-to-head in a final. Joe Amato in the runoff area.
I love my little hot rod. Doesn't get any better than this. Wow, it's a tough hot rod over there, that backside car. You know, we both use the same battery to start him with, but and he's a young lion trying to take this Joe Amato and put me in the trailer. We got Jimmy Prock and the young boys come out here, give me some gas, and we're ready to rock and roll.
Taking out a young kid here, but we got 2 guys in the finals representing 10 Winston championships.
That's the way it should be. Me and Bernstein, we're both buddies. Maybe we can play a par 3 golfer close to the pin, wins, and we'll save the money.
I don't think that's going to happen, Eli.
Not going to happen.
No, I think Joe agrees with you right there. But that's going to be a dandy of a final coming up a bit later on. Joe Amato, Kenny Bernstein here at Firebird International Raceway. Who do you like?
I think it's a pick-em deal. I think Joe has an advantage, though, with lane choice.
There you see the ladder today. It's all come down to the final pair. We'll have that for you a bit later on as our coverage of the Checker Schuck's Kragen Nationals continue. And Kenny's already busily at work. Back at Firebird Raceway, Top Fuel finals shortly. Bob Fry is with Kenny Bernstein's team.
As the Budweiser King team prepares for their final round matchup with Joe Amato, they put a brand new engine into this race car. Now, that's not because they had problems with the motor that was in there for the semifinals. It's just that Lee Beard figures that for $19.99, rather than take the motors apart each and every round, they'll put a complete new engine in the frame rails. He figures the team has had time back at the shop to meticulously work on the parts and put everything into its proper place. That way, rather than rush and try to fix the old engine, they'll just slide a new one into the rails of the Bud King each and every round of eliminations.
Nice when you have that kind of a budget, as we are now getting set for Pro Stock Eliminator, the finals. Troy Coughlin, Kurt Johnson set to go at it here at Phoenix.
Kurt Johnson in the Camaro automobile has been the stronger performer, really. Troy Coughlin in the Oldsmobile Cutlass. Not a lot of Oldsmobile Cutlasses around, but the Coughlin family likes them a lot. They've run them in sportsman racing in the lower classes and even into Pro Stock. And there is KJ, somewhere his father looking on. Troy Coughlin, somewhere his father looking on.
Indeed so. Of course, the other Coughlin, Jag, has been to 3 consecutive Pro Stock finals. Houston last year, then Pomona twice, but not today. It's the other brother, Troy, trying to hold the family colors at the line today.
And they're quick to credit Richard Maskin for the horsepower under the hoods of these machines. These 500-inch dominant, but they're pretty close. Maybe only Warren Johnson is making the level of horsepower, and Kurt Johnson is...
Dealership, they're fuel injected at this dealership here outside of Phoenix.
Poly carburetor of the size of a 55-gallon drum. Put your head inside these carburetors.
There's the final of Pro Stock.
Most drivers like this. Sometimes in Pro Stock, you can get a bit of a staging battle because you're not worried about engine temperature.
But out of the groove as Coughlin give the win to Kurt Johnson. Once Troy got out of the groove, he couldn't bring it back. And look, a 697 at 197 miles an hour. Kurt Johnson upholds the family. His daddy won here last year, and KJ does it here today.
We talked earlier about getting out of the groove, and that's what happened to this car. It may not look that violent to you, but inside that car, Troy Coughlin felt it moving around and knew that if he took it much further, he was going to be past the point of no return. It just drove towards the center line.
AC tries to bring it back, but at that point the damage is done. Kurt Johnson has the win light. Bob Fry has the victory lane.
Martin Fraser from Checkers Schuck's Kragen presenting the Pro Stock Trophy to our winner, Kurt Johnson. Kurt, congratulations. Nice win.
Oh, man, I seen that yellow fender out there for a long ways. He must have left on me pretty good. But all that testing paid off. The crew did their good job. Jeff Purley, Buzz, we call him Buzz because he ate a bee at one time drinking his Coke, James, and my wife Kathy, Connor, Aaron, everybody at home, the guys at the shop. AC Delco Chevrolet pulled through today. That Warren Johnson horsepower underneath the hood.
Congratulations to Kurt Johnson.
For the record, Troy Coughlin did have him by 2/100ths on the reaction time, but it didn't pay off at the lights. Kurt Johnson gets the win. That's how it shook down in the Checker Shucks Kragen Nationals for Pro Stock.
And look at the Winston points. Who would have thought after 2 races that Warren Johnson would be in 4th and his son would be on top of the list?
Look where Jim Yates is, tied for 6th.
Wow. But it's a long season, they'll all tell you that. But there's still 20 more races to go. Yeah, but you better start counting points at the first one. This is the Cruz Pedregon pits.
Remember they had the problems earlier? Remember the blower went kaboom as we artfully talked about it?
Now imagine, I mentioned this before, but to just emphasize it, if it wasn't for that burst panel, and those are only about 5 or 6 years old in these cars. In fact, I think it was Cruz's team that first came up with it. But let's go back. Here's what really can happen. This was Memphis, Tennessee, 1997. Watch the McDonald's car. That is Cruz Pedregon inside this rolling inferno.
Yep, that one made it to and they walked away.
The body was almost transparent there. The fire was so brilliant. Now, these cars carry 12 quarts or so of oil. If you kick a rod out, a connecting rod pokes a hole in the pan to the side of the block, all of that oil is ignited by the headers of the ignition system. And he's still in this car.
There he climbs out, 1997, Memphis, Tennessee. A spectacular sport, but it certainly has its scary moments at times. Cruiser was okay, but that McDonald's machine, well done. That was Cruz Pedregon back in 1997. Today, he's doing just fine after the blower kaboom of earlier. Bob Fry is down in his pit.
Driving a fuel-funny car has got to be a very interesting way to make a living. Of course, it does have its occasional occupational hazards. Once in a while, these cars can go kaboom. And that's one thing you got to try to get used to. Now, the drivers may get used to it, but their ladies never do. Sharon, you've watched Cruz do this. You guys have been married for almost 10 years. Do you ever get used to watching things happen like what we saw here today?
No, you don't. As long as you really care about that person that's in that car, it's always unnerving when you hear an explosion like that or see a fire. We just need to know what's going on inside that car as soon as possible. And seeing it on the Winston screen, seeing Cruz get into the ambulance, getting back out of the ambulance right away and getting into the tow vehicle and taking an interview right away so I can see exactly how he's feeling and how he's react to the whole thing. That makes me feel a lot better.
It's got to be really tough on the wives as they sit back there and watch the drivers that they love try to make a living in the sport of drag racing. Eli?
Cruz Pedregon and the family set to run yet again when we return to Phoenix. TNN Motorsports back in Phoenix, closing in on the finals of Top Fuel and Funny Car. Bob Fry, as always, in the pits.
As I sit here and watch the Budweiser King team go through their paces, Kenny Bernstein, it always amazes me that these guys, everybody knows exactly what they've got to do, and they better.
Well, they should, yeah, obviously. It's a dance. It's almost like a choreography dance. They all have a certain job to do, and they do that, and then they help each other do their jobs when they get through with theirs. So, you know, we had a great group of people here, Lee Beard leading the group, and it's been wonderful.
Beating Joe Motto on the racetrack is as good as beating him on the golf course?
Well, yeah, anytime you can beat Joe, it's good. Obviously, we're good friends, and we enjoy racing each other, enjoy playing golf, but obviously we're competitors, and once we go up there and we start these big babies up and we pull up to that starting line, all friendships are off for about 4.5 seconds.
10 Winston championships on the line in the Top Fuel final here at Phoenix. Eli?
Kenny going for his 23rd Top Fuel victory today, and that is Joe Amato. Little yoga, little concentration, it all adds up.
It looks easy, but try it. Maybe you can do it easy, but you don't do this when you first try it. I couldn't anyway. Especially if you close your eyes. Close your eyes, it changes the world.
Folks, you ought to see Steve trying it right here to my right. Sit down, Steve.
He's right. I closed my eyes. Ouch.
Force and Cruz Pedregon coming up here in just a few moments. Now it's going to be interesting to see with Cruiser having been on the near lane all day long. Yep, that's what I kind of figured. John's going to swap it on him.
Cruiser's really got, let's listen to Vernon. Nobody does him better than John Force. Cruiser's got a couple of strikes against him that Force is going to use as weapons here. First of all, John has put Cruz in that unfamiliar lane that has yielded very few victories today. Only Kenny Bernstein really won in big-time competition over there. Plus, floor explosions wreak havoc on the entire automobile. They can take the magnetos out. They can take part of the fuel system. They can just do an awful lot of damage, which means the crew has to spend all of that time repairing things they normally wouldn't between rounds, and some other things can be neglected. If this car, Cruz Pedregon's interstate car, is 100%, it's a real testimony to Wes Cerny and the guys that work on that machine.
How old is the technology underneath the bodies of these cars?
Actually, the technology is very, very old. The Hemi engine goes back to 1951 with the Chrysler Corporation. These blowers are much bigger versions of what were on diesel trucks many, many, many years ago. But it's an ongoing development process. There's nothing on one of these motors that was ever on any kind of a passenger car. It all comes from aftermarket suppliers, or a lot of the teams make them themselves.
Number 1 against number 2. John Force, the top qualifier. Cruz Pedregon. Bill says we're ready.
There's the big 17-inch Goodyear slicks. That's as big as you can run. That's the limit right there.
Funny car.
And the Winston point.
Fires his Cruz. John Force pulls away with yet another win. 484 at 317 miles an hour.
John saves the best for last. That is the quickest funny car elapsed time of this entire 3-day event, a 484.
By 3/1000ths of a second, John's got the lead off the lights. But once that smoke starts bubbling up from Cruz about at half track, it's all over.
Yeah, Cruz's engine was just a little erratic. It was trying to drop cylinders. It was trying to do a lot of things. And the clutch just was a little too stout. There he got out of the groove, and that's where his problems really started, right there. It's back to that, staying in the groove.
So from Yorba Linda, California, the 99 Mustang is heading to victory lane. John Force has won. Bob Fry is with him.
What a story. John Force climbs out of the sickbed and comes out and wins the race.
Pathetic, isn't it? No, actually, my guys, Coyle, Bernie, Madeline, Tony, everybody gave me a good hot rod. My guys, they work really hard. They never get credit. But, you know, for Ford and Syntec, Castrol, all-pro bumper-to-bumper Mac tool, it's a good win. We ain't had a win here in a while. Been sick all week. Don't matter, boy. This is an ET slip. I heal you. Good old racer Cruz. But been a long time since we've been in the winner's circle, and it's just nice really to be here. Thank you.
I think John coughed on my microphone. We'll clean this off and watch the Top Fuel Finals. Eli?
Look at this. My lips are sticking. Look at them. I couldn't talk.
The one and only.
John Force gets the win over Cruz Pedregon. As far as points are concerned, John Force still at the top of the list. There's Dean Scusa, lost in the first round today to Del Worsham. And there you see the top 10 with Frank Pedregon and Al Hoffman in the draw. Coming up, Top Fuel Finals. We've spared no expense for those fancy graphics. Snoopy against Louie next. We're back at Firebird Raceway. Time now for the Top Fuel Finals here in Phoenix. There's the Red Baron and Louie. Here comes Snoopy. Is that how they're going to cross the finish line? We'll find out. Lee Beard in the bunch says time to fire him up.
Yeah, Louie the Lizard would like to have some kind of a say-so here in this Top Fuel final. Kenny Bernstein, what a stat, huh? 22 out of 40. That's pretty strong. Kenny and Joe Amato flew in here together Thursday into Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport from Cabo San Lucas, Mexico. With their days. That's about the only thing that will take off or riding his Harley Davidson.
We told you earlier, Kenny Bernstein's 34th time racing Joe Amato in an NHRA national event competition. Head-to-head matchups, the score is Bernstein 15 wins, Amato 18 wins.
You know, Eli, I lead the battle against using cliches, but I got to throw one out here, and that is momentum. and consistency. Joe Amato has both. Kenny Bernstein has neither. Kenny and Lee Beard have been all over the map. Kenny admitted that they were just trying things. He even went back to look at what happened in Memphis last year playing the combination, where Joe Amato, they have figured out how to run the motor with these new 5-disc clutches. And it's just very impressive. Very.
And that is now the standard across the garage area.
If you don't have one, you better have one on order.
Joe Amato, been quick from the get-go, the #1 qualifier, and the Bud King.
Is there any more luck left in the bank of Bernstein?
There goes Amato, and he's pulling Bernstein. Joe Amato wins. Kenny Bernstein comes home right behind him. Look at the difference there of 56 to a 64. Joe Amato gets the win.
And Amato just flat out powered Bernstein. The race car just had more zip than the Bud King. Look at this, just steadily putting daylight between himself and Bernstein.
And how do you figure this business? At Pomona, he was home watching the telecast. Today, he's the star of the show.
I can't explain it, but it all has to do with trying to get a handle on this new clutch that we talked about. That was the whole deal.
Couple of veterans, as you'd expect. And Amato just pulls away at the lights to get the win. The official numbers. Amato, a 320-mile-an-hour lap. And once Bernstein saw him there to his right, he knew the day was done.
It's amazing, Joe. You go from a DNQ a couple of weeks ago to top of the world today.
God is good, man. He took care of us, you know. It proves the hard work pays off, you know. But for Keystone Automotive, Tenneco Automotive, Valvoline, Fan Model 8, Bendix, PPG, all the guys that support this car, they're the ones that get the credit. But my team, I can't say enough about Jimmy Brock and the guys, you know. They worked hard, not a lot of hours, a lot of nights. My son sets home with Seppi Lovey. He told me to kick butt in the final, and we did, boy. We didn't have no. We had Louis to worry about and Kenny. It's a tough team over there with that Budweiser car, but we didn't get to the finals, and especially after what happened in the first race, you know. But sometimes that's good. You have to go backwards, and then you work harder, you bear down, you put your pants on. That's a good lesson for all you kids out there. The harder you work, the luckier you get in life, and I think that's what pays off, and it's fun. This is what NHRA Winston Drag Racing is all about. Doesn't get any better than this. You! Oh, God.
Joe Amato, he is our Mopar high performer of the race. Our congratulations to him. A super effort here at Firebird International Raceway. That's how the points stack up. Amato cracking into the top 5. Our coverage here at Firebird has been brought to you by Mopar. Parts for Chrysler, Plymouth, Dodge, and Jeep vehicles from the dealerships that sell and install them. That is the Mopar difference. Hope you've enjoyed our season opening coverage here on TNN Motorsports. We'll be with you next month from Houston, Texas. But for now, we're out of time. For Steve Evans and Bob Fry, I'm Eli Gold. Thanks for joining us. We bid you so long from Phoenix, Arizona.